it like this, a blast on the page. It's a blast on the
I got money now. Money make a nigga run it. Cause I got money now. Money make a nigga run it up. Cause I got money. Make a nigga run it up. Cause I got money now. Hey, I got diamonds now. Hey, I got 100 shorties, 50 stay up on me now. All this money now.
I bet that fucker switch up.
Hey, I bet that fucker switch up. Yeah, cause I got money now. Hey, I got money now. Hey, all this money now. Watch how fast that lane I switching. All this money now. Hey, all this money now. Hey, I got money now. Watch how fast I get to moving on the road. Hey, baby biz is all I need to fucking hold. Hey, it's 28. I thought you fuckers wanna know. Hey, it's baby nip. It's just one reason I'm a.
Welcome to ThugCrowd Radio. Please listen to this important disclaimer in its entirety. All participants of this ThugCrowd Radio episode are characters. None of the stories are facts, truth, or reality. All works of fiction displayed during this episode that resemble real-life situations are coincidental and are not meant to serve as guides or tutorials to commit any crimes in any country. Please consult an attorney for local laws and regulations. And as always, trust your inner criminal.
Music is playing. The intro.
Get that white noise again.
I have a white noise right there.
Just leave it.
Welcome to ThugCrowd.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
A bunch of things happened at the same time that almost threatened the integrity of the stream, but we are here. We'll never be stopped.
Better now.
Yes. Doing well.
Good. Anyone do anything cool this weekend?
No, dude, we're just keeping it on the down low, bro.
Everybody's all
Yeah.
Yeah, so
No, I feel.
just chilling.
did see.
But digital multi-modem voice hotspot for ham radio.
That's awesome.
B-sides.
That's awesome. Oh, there's a lot of good B-sides happening. Hold on. Drop the link
I'm
in here.
doing not going outside.
There is the show notes that are in the Twitch chat now. Now on Twitter as well, if you didn't get them. Right into it. Well, the first announcement though, we have 5 slots still open for the 24-hour CTF marathon. We are going to be doing in the interim times. There's probably going to be a couple slots that aren't going to be filled, but in the interim times, we'll have a command line hooked up to Twitch chat, and on screen when no one's on, you'll have the opportunity to try to root a box live. With other people. So it'll be like the ultimate hack the box experience where everyone's sharing a terminal. So that was the thing I meant to announce. But yeah, it's looking good now. And if you are looking to fill those blank spots, definitely look at our show notes and go to weekendhack.in for information on our CTF stream.
How many total do we have?
Huh?
How many total did we have? We have filled.
I guess 19.
Oh wow. Okay. Cool. So fun.
Yeah, we gotta do a little meeting about it. I had a crazy weekend this weekend, so I wasn't able to talk much about it, but we'll be talking about it soon. But yeah, also shout out to Buses Can Fly for finding a bug in Wish. I just wanted to give a shout out on the stream, and shout out to Zaire because I meant to shout him out last time as well for finding a bug. Anybody who wants to come and test their might against any of our bots, feel free to join our Discord in the bot testing channel and hit it with all your best payload.
What's the URL again that links to Discord now? We have a cool one.
Oh, it's leet.club. So if you want to get to our Discord, leet.club. Let's get right into our news then. So the first one is just an exploit DB links, the very self-explanatory file upload, the arbitrary file upload. This was pretty interesting that it had been claimed to have been abused for a long time before it was actually disclosed.
I mean,
Yeah.
like, just look at that payload, dude. That is not a complex payload. Like,
Yeah, it's literally like it's like textbook web shell. Like,
it was on YouTube for like that.
yeah,
That's
Yeah.
wild.
I think it was 3 years.
How to hack website.
You gotta wonder how many more 0 days are hiding on YouTube now. Like, I kind of want to just crawl through YouTube and see what else I can find.
I mean, it's kind of the case though, where like you'll notice there's no CVE listed on this, and it's kind of like it's not going to get one. I highly doubt it will get one, just because if you gave a CVE to fucking every like WordPress, PHP, nuke, fucking whatever, like crappy exploit, like crappy vulnerability, you'd probably like go burn through the year's CVEs like pretty fucking quickly.
There aren't enough numbers.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like,
It's funny when they start doing the 10,000 end up.
yeah,
Becomes
like,
5 identifier for the year.
I mean, I've received requests before, like, please give me CVE, like, 17 WordPress volumes in, like, plugins you've never heard of. Like,
Instant clout.
Dang,
I
I only ever got a CVE in one WordPress plugin that was supposed to prevent brute force attacks.
nice. And it like, enabled brute force attacks.
No, no, it had stored XSS, which was done through any URL you visited, got saved in an admin log, so the XSS was guaranteed to hit an admin, and it was unauthenticated also.
That's awesome.
Oh, lovely.
Oh,
and if anybody in the stream chat is hearing or seeing that the stream is buffering weirdly, I'm not sure if we're having any network issues with that, but let us know if it is more than one person the stream is acting up for.
I posted it in general.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I did some work with Duha Security, the guy that runs WP Scan.
Oh, nice.
Hell yeah. Okay. So yeah, no, this jQuery thing though is I forgot that you can also do forms, automate forms with curl with -F. That was the thing that was really reminded me of.
Yeah, and then the @ symbol for like to upload the file rather than
Yeah, for like local files. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can attach the file to like any field normally.
Mm-hmm.
But if you like, I generally use like -D, and there's been a couple of times. So I don't know if that's out yet, but the Unicode request splitting in Node.js like makes it through like the JSON body parser that's part of like one of the main frameworks. So you can just do like -- like binary data or whatever it is, or data binary or something is the curl argument, and then you set the application X header, and it just there you go, payload through everything. Congratulations, you win the gold star.
That's awesome.
Amazing stuff. Yeah. So the next one we have on, I was interested in too. This is the Twitter releases data from state-backed information operations. Now I saw the story, but did anybody see the actual data?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, basically they had released supposedly 10 million tweets and 2 million videos and other media dating back to 2009. Oh, made available on Selections Integrity Hub, actually. But yeah, I was interested in seeing more of this because people have analyzed a bunch of like, like bot data and like, people who are obviously trying to influence political outcomes in a variety of countries. It's not even just America. There's all over the place people are doing this.
Yeah.
But I'm interested in seeing more about seeing more of the raw data and being able to maybe even like download it and parse it on my own.
I'm surprised nobody in here has done it. Nobody's grabbed the data, huh?
Yeah, I mean, like four Architects was doing some stuff with that with hashtags and things, but this is like the full. Oh yeah, here we go. Here's the full research. I will put this in. 1 second.
You gotta
So
Google link.
there's a cool company that actually analyzes data like this in real time called BotsWatch that attempts to categorize like Russian trolls and bots and stuff into like discernible campaigns and organizes the data and alerts people like, hey, you know, somebody is trying to sway public opinion. And you can check them out. They're botswatch.de. I think they're a German company.
Nice, nice.
Just before we go on, I think the Twitch is having problems with, is it Restream? Do we want to stop real quick?
Yeah, 1 second. Hold on.
Twitch
We'll be right back, guys.
is having problems?
Yeah.
Look, it's okay.
Twitch is having problems.
Okay, it should come back in a second. Yeah, if not, I can just fail over to using the Twitch key directly instead.
It looks good.
We got a link for the data.
Yeah, I just threw it in Voiceless Voice. Could someone throw it in the Twitch chat? I'm trying to grab the stream key real quick, just in case we need to.
Yeah, I already put it in the chat.
Awesome, thank you. But yeah, no, the elections integrity stuff is like really interesting because there's obviously so much data that when like a human being looks at it in context, it makes sense that there is a pattern to all of it, but it's hard to see, especially because of the types of information this is on. It's very coldly calculated using the latest techniques of inciting feelings in people, and using that to plan everyone's emotions. And it's interesting from like a group psychology perspective to me, to see this kind of stuff. So I definitely want to play around with this more.
Didn't Facebook do that as well?
Yeah, and actually, I forget who else did it. There was Facebook had released a very small amount of screenshots of ads that were purchased by Russian trolls. And some of them were stuff.
There was a thing with Facebook where they only displayed certain emotional stuff in terms of ads on their Facebook feed to see the behavioral analysis of people that were using Facebook at the time to see what their posts were positive or negative, to see if Facebook actually impacted their life. I'll try and find it for you.
No, I mean, the people who have been using these kind of platforms for this sort of research for a long time. And it's only getting easier and easier because it's, going on Facebook when you buy an ad. I don't know if anybody here has bought ads before, but it's really, really, really weird how granular it is. You can pick people in a specific town, in a specific race, and age group and gender, whatever you want, literally any sort of background.
Did you actually see like the story where the guy got like it was a minimum of 10 people that needed to be in the sort of demographic or something, and he then set the preferences so it would target exactly his.
Yeah, that's gonna say there was. Is there a link to that? Like, do you remember any of the detail of it? Because it's a cool story.
It was how he had one of his secrets was that he couldn't swallow pills, and so he had ads targeting like, do you have problems swallowing pills?
That's fucked up.
What do you guys think a warranted response to like all of this trolling is?
Think of what?
Yeah, I didn't hear that either. MJ, repeat.
What do you think a warranted response to all of the trolling is?
I don't know. Honestly, this is the kind of thing where it's like when it comes to normal trolling, you can fight it, but then usually just the best solution is to ignore it. But the fact that it's happening on a scale that I've never seen before, like none of us have ever seen before, is where it just starts bringing in so many different,
You basically just asked, like, how do I prevent culture jamming from occurring? And like the whole point is that they're targeting things that are very difficult for people to change. Like they're exploiting the fact that we have a two-party system that incentivizes hatred towards the other side because there's not a third sort of like unit to come into play.
I like that culture jamming. Good to me.
Yeah.
That's a good way
No,
to
I mean,
describe
it's absolutely
Yeah.
it. It's but that's the kind of thing is that stuff, culture jamming specifically, the kinds of things that are advocated by people, all over the place for various political purposes or just trolling the lulz in general. Those things are always going to be a step ahead. The same way that hackers are always going to be a step ahead of security. I mean, blue team people. Where there's always going to be there's always going to be somebody who thinks of some new stupid way to do something, and it might be the dumbest thing ever, but if it's effective, then it's effective, and it's a vector, an attack vector.
I
And so I
actually
think,
love when companies like make the claims like we stay one step ahead of the hackers. It's like, no, you definitely don't, bro.
Yeah, and they get owned by some APT team with a spear phishing attack.
Right.
They get owned by some 12-year-old with fucking SQL map. Like,
No, not even
Yeah.
that. SEA toolkit is the way to get into anything now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
We
it.
stay one step ahead of documents with macros.
Just look at Sony. Sony's a perfect example of that.
Ugh.
I got an idea from some episode of Mr. Robot, and it worked against every company that's unhackable.
Can you imagine like the realistic Mr. Robot episode where it's just like this boring ass like lame fish and it just works because people click on it?
Yeah.
I want to
Day
see a
one.
Mr. Robot episode.
Dude, that's
where
how
it's
it
kinda-
works, though.
I know. They're
wanna
like,
see
oh, this isn't exciting.
I want to see Mr. Robot try and compile an exploit and get stuck in GCC. That'd be hilarious.
Like, stuck in wire.
What are these headers?
God damn it, I knew I shouldn't have downgraded.
Yo, opens Vim by accident, reboots instead of finding the shortcut.
Oh yeah, the next story is interesting. I've the fact that a Metasploit module came out of this. This story: a researcher finds simple way of backdooring Windows PCs and nobody notices for 10 months. It's a RID hijacking technique. Basically, just a way to spoof which identifier for what kind of account you have. Yeah, but I guess this person had put it out there, and it's been tested from XP to 10 and server 2003 until now. And yeah, they wrote a Metasploit module about this as well.
Wait, so what I'm looking at, it says the RID. All you have to do is change that, and you can spoof somebody. Somebody's
Yeah, I guess.
What the hell?
Wait, so that's not immutable. You can change your own account like straight.
Yeah, I didn't read the code for the Metasploit module yet, and I don't know if it just drops a binary or not. Actually, I'm gonna look at it right now.
It looks like it uses like 500 though, which is the equivalent to.
Oh no! It edits registry keys. That's what it is.
Oh,
yeah.
That's still cool though.
No, it's pretty cool. Just trying to look at this code here. I should look at this earlier, but yeah, basically, if you have a low privileged account, it's a pretty solid privilege escalation vector.
Anyone come across any of the boot kits yet? Like the BIOS level root kits? I've been trying to find samples and stuff. I can't find anything.
I've seen like not actual code, like just documentation on some, and like looked at some UEFI dumps myself, but there's not a lot of like dumping and reversing UEFI stuff is like available, but then details on actually harnessing it is very like sort of scarce.
Yeah.
Black magic.
But did you see there was we talked about it I think 2 weeks ago. There was architecture bugs that allowed like secure boot bypasses and stuff, so you could just load unsigned UEFI firmwares that then chain down to like unsigned unsigned kernel images.
That's crazy.
No, I hadn't seen that. I seen there was this Chinese malware that what was it? It started a backdoored like bootloader, I think, that then booted Windows, which basically stealth backdoored it while loading the Windows image.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Because secure boot's like only as good as your UEFI ROM, right?
I'm trying to think what it was. Oh, it was to do with that chip implant, which was in a bunch of devices that owned like Amazon and shit.
Oh, the Bloomberg thing. That turned out that it was there's no evidence to back that. That's the one you're talking about, right? The Bloomberg was saying that the Supermicro BMCs.
I think so. It was like some tiny little chip. I never really looked into it that much. I just saw that there was supposedly a Chinese dual boot with it, and there was also a Ethernet device that was also backdoored on it.
Yeah, so the Ethernet thing was the Ethernet firmware wasn't patched, but as a rule of thumb for like all the big companies that put it in, they were upgrading the firmware after they got them from the factory anyway. So they all claim they weren't affected, but I highly doubt that. And I reckon, yeah, some dudes just like got the server out of the box and racked it up straight away.
Yeah, there's just some poor dude running around the DC pulling Ethernet cables.
Yeah, some guy who said he worked at a major ISP said that there was some other device, I think in the Ethernet area, and everybody else was like, well, what the hell are you talking about? No. And what was even funnier was that the Bloomberg article had, like on the tip of the pencil or whatever, turns out to be some like RF splitter used in cell phones. It's like a completely dumb chip.
I saw the stealth printer, which was actually an IMSI catcher on Twitter recently. That was pretty cool. Yeah, it was like people supposedly you sneak into an office and you plant a printer, which IMSI catches everyone, but the chance of you getting in with a printer is highly unlikely. I mean, SEing your way in, yeah, but SEing with a printer.
Well, dude, in 2003,
printer, Wi-Fi names.
Just like
2003, dude. There was a heist at the Sydney airport data center for EDS, where two guys walked in and removed the mainframe, and the security guys at the front desk helped them get it into the.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It was like some legit fucking lols.
I always feel bad, like, slightly bad for the people that get tricked, like the security guard guys. You know that's got to be embarrassing as all hell.
Nah, I think the most embarrassing thing I've seen recently was there's an ATM by my house, and basically it always gets robbed. But what they do is they charge the back of it so it blows the front off of the ATM. But whoever tried to do it this time did it wrong, blew it backwards, and set the shop on fire.
Wait, what? Using explosives?
No, it's something. I'm not sure how they actually do it. I was reading that it's something to do with an electrical charge that gets the front off of it really easily.
Oh, interesting.
But, yeah, it backfired and set the shop on fire.
That's funny.
I'll see if I can find anything on it. I'm gonna go back to COD for a little bit.
Good stuff.
Oh yeah. The next story we have here is interesting. I put it in here because of the Tamper Evident Village and this exact technique that some of us learned at DEF CON. Security seals used to protect voting machines can be easily opened with a shim crafted with a soda can. And yeah.
Grumble,
I mean,
grumble.
it's just like anything with these security seals can be opened like this, including supplies that U-Haul tries to charge you $10 for. So
that's a fun tip. I like that.
Yeah. But it definitely is something you shouldn't do, and you shouldn't post about it on Twitter. Somebody might report you to DEF CON directly for some reason.
You might report yourself directly to DEF CON and do
Right.
about.
Whoops.
But either way, though, it is an interesting concept because these things. I mean, there's so many ways to get around tamper evidence seals. And it's kind of silly how easy it is in certain ones, but it's definitely just another thing to throw in the pile of why it's a dumpster fire with voting machines.
The voting
soda can shim though
is so terrible.
The soda can shim though is pretty funny because like soda cans you can get them anywhere. They're fucking really you can pull them apart with your hands. And they're so malleable, you can make a really thin shim into any shape you want with very little tools. It's
oh yeah, and they're great for opening master locks too.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, no, definitely interesting stuff. Tamper Evident Village is pretty awesome. So I don't know if you guys are at DEF CON next year and they're around, check them out. So yeah. Oh, the next one we have here is remote code execution flaws found in free RTOS. There's a lot of them. There's 4 remote code execution, a bunch of information leaks, and some denial of services.
I'm really not up to speed. What's free RTOS?
It's like an embedded operating system for like embedded controllers. It's like used all over the place. I haven't really played with much that uses it, but I have it downloaded for some reason because I think I was gonna put it on something, but I forget what. But it's definitely very popular though. It's like it's a little tiny kernel. It's a real time operating system that just you can use for specific tasks, and hook it up to your microcontroller or embedded system that is connected to some spooky SCADA or ICS.
But it's pretty
I think,
prolific, huh?
I mean, Ugly Packets on Twitter, Ash was talking about the differences in like embedded land, finding embedded Linux bugs versus like RTOS bugs in general, like not specifically free RTOS, but like just like it goes back into sort of hard mode. Like embedded Linux bugs are like a dime a dozen, but then once you start looking at something like this, like usually you have custom stuff for if you're gonna have an embedded RTOS, like unless it's like something specific, like I don't know, unless they're using something like free RTOS, which is like I think less common but bigger for a vendor, I suppose is the way to put it. Like if a singular person is unlikely to use it, but a vendor would probably use it. So then that's I guess why the significance of having so many CVEs in one go is just because people aren't.
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely people have found some pretty basic bugs because I mean, it's hard to implement certain protections that actual systems can have on them, especially if they're older embedded systems and you're just supporting legacy embedded hardware. So
Yeah.
definitely
But
interesting.
nobody updates them either. I mean, like trying to push an OT over the air update like out to RTOS. Like good luck. It's like just unless somebody physically goes up to it with a fucking programmer, it's never getting past.
I need
Did
to
you
play
see?
it.
Did you see that guy that got in major shit for fixing everyone's routers? Or I think it was a business router.
Did
That
somebody
was vulnerable. He got in trouble for patching them all.
Oh, that's bullshit.
I mean, it's still a breach, even if you do fix what was wrong. But
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of going after people for stuff
yeah,
like
but he mass fixed a bunch of stuff and apparently released a list of supposed IPs that were fixed, and it pissed a bunch of people off.
What did he? I'm assuming it didn't go past trial yet. Is it just starting or what?
No, it's I think they're still trying to basically dox him, but he's on Twitter.
Oh.
I'll try and find the name.
Oh yeah, no, there's definitely a few of them, right?
But I mean, like that's the thing. Like the embedded Linux land, like routers and shit, is just a fucking joke. Like when tweeted like Snare was tweeting about FPGA toolchains being fucking ridiculous, like last week, and it was like, yeah, but he's like, I think his comment was something like, "Is this what happens when hardware people play software engineer?" And like I replied and just said like, look, take 12 seconds to look at Arduino, like it's a piece of shit, and everybody thinks that's normal. And then like you sort of build that up until you have to put embedded Linux on something, and like there's hardware people going like, oh, we've put like this voice modulating FPGA into this like router. Now put a Linux on it, and it's just like a fucking just every router is a piece of shit. Like, unless it's produced, or even when it's produced, I guess by like Cisco and Juniper or whatever, they're obviously like much better. In general, you're sort of. I think we're talking about D-Link later. Let's save it for then.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Sorry. The next story we have on here is about the Vesta CP server that was compromised. This story was kind of weird. I was trying to find some more information about it. They have like their press release and stuff. Basically, there had been some malware that had backdoored a bunch of people who used Vesta CP, like control panel, for their servers, and someone had dropped a new binary called DHCP renew in user bin, and they could use it to open a shell or launch DDoS attacks from the server.
Man, what a waste! So Vesta CP is like pretty prolific control panel, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard of it, but I've not used it before.
Yeah,
I've seen it used a lot.
I haven't.
Is it like Plex or something like WHM?
Yeah, that's what my question was. It seems
Yeah,
like right, and so to just use it for DDoS or a DDoS botnet, that's so short-sighted. Like, use your access for something more fun. God.
Fuck.
Mining.
Readme, my computer actually did the thing. Could you make sure the stream is alive?
Streams up.
Yeah.
Okay, it should be okay for now. Sorry.
We're doing it live.
Yes.
Fuck it! We're doing it live! Doing it live! Fuck it!
Everybody wake up!
Readme, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, cool. Hi. Just keep the session alive, please. Thank you.
Rock and roll.
All right. So yeah, we just got taken over with some DDoS malware on our RDP session. So yeah, this is interesting though that they compromised an entire platform that uses this. There's a vulnerability in the actual control panel software, and I guess there was they patched and did an update for it. But if anybody had an older version of Vesta CP's client, then they might need to check and see if their stuff has been compromised.
See if you're DDoSing Krebs on security.com.
I find it like crazy that in like sort of this year, like I feel like 20 years ago, like buying a Deddy and putting a cPanel on it for fucking hosting or whatever, and then cramming it full of like clients. That was like the business model like 20 years ago. And nowadays, like you just get a fucking box from Amazon or whatever. Like why? I don't know. Is there people just that lived 20 years ago? I don't know.
Oh
yeah.
There's different use cases for it, right? But the thing that really bugs me about this story is the fact that they're just wasting it on like something as stupid as packeting. So lame.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. If you can, you've dropped something in like use a bin, like anything other than like a fucking DDoS like payload, please.
If I was to go to, I guess, the illegal side, that shit would all be getting rootkit.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Well,
there's so many possibilities.
They've already got root, obviously, because they're dropping binaries in fucking in user bin, right? So, like, we can assume that the boxes are rooted already, and they probably have persistent access at that point.
Well, but
most people that get root just genuinely just burn it instantly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So short-sighted. I mean, like if you have access to something like this is what ISPs use to manage their assets. Think a little bit forward, and maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm giving tips for crimes. I don't know. Maybe I should.
./XMR minor.
It's all just a joke.
Yes, everybody here is a character.
Sorry, all theoretical.
But yeah, there's inevitably whatever you get, like whatever assets you are able to obtain online, whatever boxes you're able to root, there is a better use for them than packeting.
Real, like, ugh.
All right, I'm back. Alrighty. But yeah, no, interesting stuff. The next one here just came out. I don't know if it was today or when this was. Hold on. I think it was today. Signal Desktop leaves the decryption key in plain sight on Windows.
Was it just a key? Oh,
I thought. Yeah, well, it's the key to unlock an SQLite like database that has all of your messages in it.
Right.
I was looking at that. It has a legit user case though, but it's a bad way of doing it.
Yeah.
It's obviously how they're going to retrieve all your messages. So when you start up, you have your previous messages. But
I think, like, as shitty as it is, and hopefully Signal and Whisper fixes it, I still like Signal the best. Like, they still are doing like the good fight, right?
No, I do like Signal.
I find that a lot of these sort of mobile-born applications like Telegram and Signal, Wire, and whatever else, I feel like the desktop apps have been an afterthought and a tack on, whereas like the mobile apps seem to be where they put a lot of their initial engineering.
Agreed.
I just don't really like the desktop aspect of it all. And then because I'm an old man, using a phone or a tablet is extremely hard for me. Because I don't understand this kid technology and gestures and all this shit.
To be honest, I've never understood why people just go for the application and don't bother attacking the endpoint. There's something that really gets me. There's not many people like testing endpoint stuff. Like the amount of stuff that you can have just from running a proxy off your phone and having the app open. Like there's tons of different stuff, but everyone that goes for apps now just literally decompiles the app, looks at the source, finds one little thing, and is like, it's okay.
Really?
But, I mean, if you have a jailbroken iOS, like you want to hook like the socket open, like so that you can like hook the crypto so that you can get it like pre-TLS though, right?
Yeah, you got to
That's
try
one
and
of the
break
biggest things.
SSL cert pinning.
Yeah, well, if you've already rooted the device, I mean, then you can get hooks in there. But like, it's just like takes a different like approach, a different method. Whereas most people are like grabbing the package and unpacking it and then running it through fucking a disassembler or whatever. Like it's a more simplistic sort of vision of where they're like going with their attack or what the way they take.
I feel like it's almost practical versus non, right? Like it's analytical versus practical or tactile.
I wanted to do it with my phone, but like for some reason, my Android just will not get past cert pinning.
There's that early version of iOS, like I can't remember what version it was. It was an early version where like cert pinning could be like defeated like without any. You just man in the middle, and you would get a pop up that's like cert not valid, and you just press OK, and that's the end.
Yeah, see on Android you can repackage the app and just what is it? There's literally a flag you can throw in the app.xaml which allows you to debug the app bypassing cert pinning.
Yeah, nice.
That's cool.
There's an entire like app framework for doing that too.
Yeah, I tried using it. I couldn't get it to work.
What's it
I
called?
think it's kind of old. I think they changed around a bunch of the stuff that they do in the newer Androids, which is why you can't just add a CA to Android anymore and use it in the web browser.
Yeah.
But I mean, can't you just? I mean, I don't do a lot of Android mobile stuff in general, but can't you just compile like Android x86 and then just be like the Jesus of right there?
Yeah, you can do all that now. Yeah, you didn't used to be able to do that, but now you can.
Because if you have Android x86 in like a fucking VM and you attach a debugger to the VM, well, now you're God. Everybody. I don't know.
I guess the way that I've been having to do it is literally running Android emulator with that package that you were talking about, the app framework. I forgot what it's called. But yeah, that it works in an Android emulator, but in terms of my phone, I can't get any of it working. It just hates my SA+.
It's weird. Good times.
Tell us more about your phone. What
Yeah. The next story that we have on here came out looks like yesterday. But thanks to Scalesec for posting this one. I didn't see this. And UDNZ as well found this as well. The GCC in GCC 7 and 8. This is interesting. There's a lot of information in here. Basically, though, it's like, hold on.
It's too cool. Like the way.
No, it's pretty interesting. Like basically, it's just disabling like the NX bit or any other sort of stack protections on parent function if a called function or a nested function within another function was able to set the executable bit, and so it basically like it poisons that parameter throughout the rest of the remainder of the function. And so they'd used it to find bugs in, scrolling down here, it was like Git for Windows installer, Cygwin, MinTTY, the Git Bash shell, and a bunch of other tools.
We're talking about the GCC thing, though, right? The GCC.
Yeah, the GCC. Yeah, the GCC compiled these specific apps were compiled with this insecure context, and now they are vulnerable.
Yes, I mean technically, like if you read the code. If you do like static analysis on the code and you look at it, you go, all right, no bugs in code, code fine, code compiles, like bugs, like so.
Yeah, well, you basically have to like do readelf or any other sort of tool to actually look at what flags are set on the pages as they're called. So you can definitely do that with the community, or you can, GDB readelf if you're on Linux. And yeah, I mean, they don't only describe it for Windows, or they describe it for Windows, but they are talking about it also in context of GDB and like readelf and stuff. So I'm not sure.
It's definitely a cross-platform bug.
Yeah,
but I just think it's like, I don't know. I like it because it's subtle. I guess is like it's introducing bugs that just are very unexpected. From that static analysis point of view, I guess.
I'm really a big fan of the really weird, obscure bugs that compilers introduce, because you can feasibly have like a completely secure code base that looks fine on paper, for lack of a better term, and then it's the compiler that actually ends up introducing whatever vulnerability you end up finding. Those little fun things are always awesome.
Yeah. I'll be definitely more interested. Sorry, go on, you.
I was gonna say, what do you do for something like this? Then you have to either compile with another version of GCC, but what if you've built, a really crazy tool chain that you need to compile with whatever version of GCC this is? Same as we were talking about before, you can't get your exploits to compile. I mean, what if you can't get your Git desktop or your, Sigwin? I don't know how that's compiled, but I don't want to ever look at that make file.
You've got to remember as well that like with all those packages you're talking about, like the Sigwin, Git Bash, all that shit, they're distributed binaries. So like the tool chain is way back at whoever. Like so there's an unlimited amount, so like and a very large amount that's hard to fathom, like binaries being distributed now that are likely to never get patched. Like again, something that might never get patched because it's like obscure, it's out there. Like you could have this exact same version. Say you've got like, I don't know, Git Bash 1.7 or something, and then like you go, I don't know, you can have it built with a different compiler from the same source code, and like you MD5 the two files, they're obviously different, but the end user has absolutely no idea because the version number is the same. It just came from a different compiler.
Yeah, that's why I say wipe the tears and stop crying, because in reality there is no easy way, right? Like there's no easy fix for it, and that's the scary thing.
Yeah, you just have to say, if you're a vendor and you've used this compiler to do your entire fucking source tree, you have to go, right, we now have to bump every single version number or something in order to confirm that we've recompiled everything with the new tool chain, like because there's just no way to go. It's a whole lot of analysis and a whole lot of management to actually get it done.
The interesting thing is, how do you ask your contractors that no longer work for you that compiled this however many months or years ago, stuff like that gets really nasty.
Like, I built it on my laptop like one fucking time.
Sec Princess, do you have any thoughts on this bug? If you are here.
I am here, but I wasn't listening really well. I was over doing something else while you guys were all talking.
No, we're talking about the GCC bug with the nested functions that make it so that it marks the rest of the function as executable when it's called.
Yeah, we started kind of going down the path of, well, what happens when your contractors or people that are in line of creation of the software accidentally used it and you don't realize it.
And that's something I can't talk about. my position where I'm at doesn't allow me to talk about that.
Okay.
Does that kind of tell you what I think about it?
Yes. Yes. We will not talk about it later.
I think
It's
never...
not a good thing. Let's say that.
Very true.
Absolutely. No, but yeah, it's definitely something to look out for. See how this develops over time. I should read more of this. I only saw it this morning.
Honestly, it seems like really just very, very detailed documentation is the only. It is one of the biggest layers that you could do to sort of kind of have visibility into it. But yeah, it's such a nasty one. It really is.
Yeah.
I think as well, like, if you were to create a scanner of some kind to sort of like go, all right, look for nested functions that could possibly have this operation, like you did some sort of mass analysis like that, you still don't know if any of those binaries that are affected are vulnerable or not. Like it doesn't actually give you that insight because you still need the specific. All right, so the NX bit isn't set. What does that really mean in the context of that application? That's a whole different story, right?
I think layers of security, right? You got to just keep it going.
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought it was interesting in anything that would potentially call something that would start a process that would be the basis of your process that you would make, or for whatever you're using this for. So if you were to compile something and then for some reason, or not even compile something, just run something and it used this, then it would make everything in your context unsecure. If you were called through something else, because all the nested functions and called functions throughout it are poison.
And so everybody who tells me that statically linking everything on every Go binary is a good idea, like, fuck you.
Right. Fuck you.
Right. All right. So the next things we have some good reads here. Definitely look at this article by somebody who is an Amazon employee who says that Amazon should not sell facial recognition tech to police. We have talked about this quite a bit.
Yes.
And just the fact that it's getting more and more powerful.
I'm glad it is though. Like it's really important.
Ability to happen. But yeah, I would definitely take a look at that. I wanted to talk though about this D-Link routers thing. There's somebody on Twitter, Dominic, who had been trying to get D-Link to do something about these bugs, and they have seemed to be not doing it that well. So he put out a blog post about it. Basically, he found like directory traversal, passwords that are stored in plain text, and then just straight up command injection on D-Link routers on a bunch of them. And you have a nice little proof of concept video as well of showing exactly how he chained them all together to get root these bugs or some of these routers.
It's pretty fun.
Great.
I mean, to be honest, like, you got to look at it from a vendor perspective again. Like, okay, so you got all these routers. Say you take, I won't give this person any airtime, but they bought a whole bunch of routers, old D-Link routers for like, less than $10 recently. And I was like, so the fuck what? Like, basically from a vendor perspective is they've sold these routers. These routers are old tech. Like, say you've got a DSL router or a DOCSIS like 1 or 2 router, right? Like, like cable modem. Like, nobody cares anymore because it's already sold, and the reality is the customer should upgrade. Now the customer doesn't give a shit because they're like, my internet works. Why do I need a new modem? Like, I don't want to spend like $200 or like however much. So, but the vendors, like, we're not even selling these anymore. They've been on the market for like 5 years. We're just like never going to patch. And then like, I'm like, most of the router sort of firmware to me, like when I look at company like Netgear or TP-Link or something, they often like seem to use like similar models are using like the same build M's and like the same configuration, which is why you see like families get affected by the same bugs because it's just the same fucking code recompiled for the new target. So like I see the point where D-Link are like, who gives a shit, go buy new routers. But then I also see the thing how like the people who are the most vulnerable are the people who have no idea about security, how this works, why they should even have a good router or whatever,
Wait,
exactly. People are
still official
Linksys routers from forever ago.
And that's exactly what I was saying. Sorry, say what?
I was just gonna say, is that D-Link's official advice? Just upgrade. They're not gonna patch it.
No. Well, I've definitely seen D-Link, Neki, or whatever say that there's like no patch coming for stuff. Like, this, this is it's an end of life piece of hardware. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, and the same thing from companies like Ericsson and Hawaii, and even like Juniper and Cisco do the same thing. The end of life a piece of hardware. That's it. There's no patch. You don't like it, we'll buy.
It's so interesting because like it makes sense to 99% of the world, right? Or 95% of the world, but there's a section of industries, specifically infrastructure, that use old hardware because it works. And like if it works, it works. You
Well,
don't
not even that. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but people sell like support packages after EOL dates. They'll still support the product and do what it needs to do, but it necessarily isn't exploitable because of the fact.
Well, and that's good when they offer the extended support, but when companies are just like, well, you should have already had new hardware by now. That's crazy. That's insane.
Yeah, that's gonna be, what is it, like is it April 2038 or May 2038 when we run out of 32-bit time, the actual Y2.
Time? Awesome.
Well, like the amount of seconds stored in a 32-bit int is going to run out at some point.
Can I buy more?
Yeah, it's called 64-bit. Welcome to the future.
It's called Why Do You Have 4 Gigs of RAM?
Yeah.
Download more RAM.com.
So like, yeah, whenever it's like the actual like time runs out in like 32-bit ints, it's going to be funny because there'll just be crap that people have lying around. Well, I mean, I assume that there'll be crap that people have lying around that just nobody even knows what it is. It just runs out.
Should be fun.
Memory, the ints wrap and time wraps, and time goes back to 1970, and everybody.
It's like Y2K all over again. Now the kids get to enjoy those 100-hour weeks.
Oh yeah, I just think like the whole router, like the whole like Soho router scene, at least from every vendor, like I put faith in none of them, and they're all built, like there's so many of them, of the devices are built on embedded Linux. Like I can't think of a vendor who doesn't use it, and I feel like if they were to like look at a project like OpenWRT or something, right? It still has its flaws, but it has, it's open source. It has people looking at it. If vendors were to collaborate a little bit more with something, across their devices to build like more robust platforms for their operating system, then maybe we wouldn't have such shitty routers getting like mirrored and whatever, and then slicers getting owned because they buy D-Link.
There's some extent to what that does happen. Like I noticed that a lot of telecom providers, they reuse the same cable boxes for like actual cable television. I remember when I was working at an ISP, I was talking to some of the devs on one of the TV projects, and he was telling me how they're basically just using an open source operating system.
Yeah, there's I mean, I rooted a IoT thing. It's like an air conditioner thing. I don't know, a few months ago, and it was using like it still has the in the MOTDs like the name of the distro that they're using.
What was it though? Can you say the brand or no?
No, because I haven't disclosed it yet. But like, I was just surprised that like the name of the distro was still there, and that sort of in a way made me feel like a little bit happy that they picked something that is like not like they didn't try and roll their own fucking Linux on it. But it also made me sad because I rooted it with like their shitty bash shell. Like they had a bash script with like CJ running his root. So
Awesome. But hey, that seems to be it for the news section here. Yeah, just another reminder, we still have 5 slots open for the 24-hour CTF charity marathon on November 3rd from 8 a.m. to 8 a.m. Eastern time, America/New York. So
it's for a good cause.
Anybody interested here and wants to help us raise money, go for it. If you also want to be here to help support the In Between Times Twitch plays rooting a box, also let me know as well, because we need some people to help out with that. I don't think I get to do it the entire time. But yeah, also another quick announcement too. Our next episode is about aesthetics, and so I wanted to give everybody a chance to know about that way ahead of time, because we want everybody to share all of their, I guess, anything that you do to make your terminal and your desktop environment and your workspace and whatever awesome looking. So we want to see everybody's cool riced out terminals and desktops and lights all over their battle stations and everything. So I'm really excited about that. We have some cool people that are going to be sharing some tips about that. And a lot of resources. So if you have anything like that to share, please send it to the @ThugCrowd on Twitter, and we can put some of that stuff up on the screen when we are talking about it.
Awesome.
If you'd like to dump it into Discord directly, take the photo with your mobile device with GPS, and post it into Discord. Discord does not strip EXIF, so we will know where you live, and we would very much like to build a database of battle stations.
Very quick way to strip EXIF is to upload it to Twitter or Facebook and then download it again.
Hey, did you see the guy that's trying to send people the ThugCrowd APK? That should probably be a thing that doesn't happen.
Oh yeah.
I guess we should probably. Yeah, now that you're saying.
Yeah,
okay.
it has Android.permission.write external storage permissions.
I'm really glad that you actually looked at that. Shout out to the guy who wrote it.
Yeah.
ThugCrowd.com.svc.
So we will not have a Android app. That's way too much infrastructure to have to deal with. I can barely write the show notes.
Features, yeah.
But so we don't have a podcast app. But if you do see one, feel free to decompile it. And if you see any domains in there, feel free to register them.
Yeah, so, own the crap out of it.
Whoa.
Put it on
I was told that if you register a domain to stop some threat, that you'll get charged by the FBI. True.
It's a verifiable
You travel America, so you should be fine.
Rest in peace, malware.
I mean, you will if you have a history of like making malware with snitches.
Oh no.
Yeah.
So again, before we do any of this, aesthetics. Everybody here, send us your desktop environment. Make sure that you have your terminal open with your passwords up.
You have no idea.
But yeah,
like
let's
really good artists.
It's going to be like furry awesomeness when it actually boots up. You have no idea.
I cannot wait to see what your desktop looks like. Actually, I know what it looks like, and it looks awesome. So
yeah, I showed it to you. Remember?
Hell
I
yeah.
even made so my freaking little stuff. It's pretty fun.
Dude, I'm gonna have to clean my desk. Like it's gonna have to. I got so much shit that needs to be taken off it for photos.
Quote unquote shit, whatever that means, right?
I mean, you could just make a new VM of it and then just say it's yours, or just I don't know.
No. I mean, like, I want to take a photo of my desk, but I need to actually clean it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I look like a slob.
Look like
you're real happy.
I just work. I just work really
looks
hard.
like a
bro.
slob. I'm just kidding.
Yo,
I
whoever
feel the
made
same
that
way.
app,
I have a napkin just here. I don't know why it's been here for months.
whoever made
Anyways,
that app
let's,
is posting a video.
Let's get into our guest now. I'm actually very excited about this. Sec Princess, hi, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Awesome.
You guys, this has really been chill to just sit back and listen to for a while.
Yeah, we kind of just banter, and we can banter way too long, so we got to kind of wrap it up a little bit and get into the actual meat of our episode. But we'll more than happy to chill and talk more later too. So yeah, I want to get right into it. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Do we have that much time?
Sure.
Anyway, I've been a software developer since around 1990s. I originally started as a hardware geek, and I built cables and connectors for Precision Interconnect, which was a division of AMP Incorporated. I have a few patents for cable and connector designs for ultrasound stuff. I got really tired of drawing circles and squares all the time because that's all you do when you're a hardware person. And so I decided I wanted to go try software. I went to work for a couple of companies like Kentrox, which then became ADC Kentrox, and I did Telecom Big Iron, and I've done 56 port T1 cards, DS3 cards, Stratum 3 clock drivers, all for Big Iron stuff that requires 7 nines of operation, which
That's impressive.
yeah, 99.99999%. Basically, it was actually really bad, because what it was is that if anything happened to the card, you just wanted to let the data go through untouched.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about it, that's a hacker's paradise, because if you could kill the card, you could get whatever data you wanted through it.
It was open.
Yes, and they've started changing that. And then after I got through with that stint, I ended up working. I stayed out for many, many, many years, but I ended up going to work for Intel about a little over a decade ago. And I've done Wi-Fi, WiMAX, Bluetooth, GPS, SDIO driver on a chip. Got tired of doing embedded and moved over to the Open Source Technology Center inside Intel, where I worked on every single failed operating system that they ever did. So Moblin, Migo, Tizen, and Android One. and I was their first kernel maintainer for one of the first tablets that Intel did.
It's impressive.
And I got tired of that and finally found me a mentor and got into security and started working in security. For OTC, was their security champion and had no power. So I left there and went to the corporate level, where I now work for Intel's product assurance and security group, which I have a Thor's hammer now when it comes to open source.
Very cool. That's amazing.
So yes, I'm old.
That's a much shorter way of saying it, but yeah.
It's like the graybeard's graybeard.
Yeah,
I know, this is insane. I when we were talking last night, I was just like, everything that you told me, even in like a couple minutes, I was just like, damn. It's like longer than I've been alive. But so much badass knowledge though. Like, so you did telecom stuff though back in the 90s.
Yes.
You're saying, and I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. So when things started going from analog to digital to VoIP, like what is that kind of like? Because I've never really talked to anybody from that era again.
Thank you for making me feel really no.
It's out of respect, of course.
So anyway, when we first started, that is actually what I did for a living. Was we were in the process of doing packet switch networks to digital networks. And so we would take like the 56 port T1 card that I worked on, brought in whatever, right? I have frame relay. We also did E1 at the same time, which is the European specification, just like T1, only more. Yeah, more channels, right? Just same stuff. But we actually took that in. We took anything in and put it out as ATM, which could be used as digital. And it was interesting in the very beginning. I'm sorry. I'm reading too at the same time that I'm talking and listening to people. So, but it was a strange thing because many of the companies didn't want to go to digital, and especially telephone companies, right? They thought they were going to be losing out. And so we really had a hard push.
Do you have to tell them to stop using punch down tools?
Well, you would be surprised at some of the things I saw at some of the telecom knocks that you go to and go to their side rooms where they have their where they tap their T1s.
Yes, his closet's covered in unicorn puke.
Yes.
Sure.
So did you did you actually have to measure stuff in Erlang's?
Well, we actually there were many things that I felt were unethical that we were doing when we were building some of this digital stuff, because they actually wanted taps on their T1 and stuff like that when we would build them.
I remember.
That's
those days.
Well, they wanted it so they could be undetected.
Yep, and so obviously we know the end of the story is they eventually won, right?
Oh, of course, they always do. You know,
But it's good that you put up a fight. So when you encountered that, was it something easy that you could even bring up and say, "Hey, this is kind of shady, guys. What are we doing?" Or did you just kind of have to be quiet about it?
Oh no, you have. I mean, I'm. People who know me know that I'm not very quiet. I have never been one who was afraid to yell at their boss and tell them they sucked. Right. And I was probably a lot more impulsive in my younger years when I was doing stuff like that. And I'm telling them, you know, you shouldn't be doing this. You know, this is kind of not nice. And they said, well, we don't really have much of a choice. And like anybody who doesn't make very much money and is doing a job at the, you know, at the pleasure of whoever your employer is at that time, you tend to just go ahead and go along with it because you really don't have a choice.
Yeah, that's cool though. That's good to speak up. I mean, if you not to keep on this tangent for too long, but if you had advice for new up and comers that are kind of in the same position, what would you have done anything differently? Would you have spoken up more?
Yes, nowadays, yes. And I mean, it's a lot better nowadays because people actually think about ethics now. They didn't then.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, ethics wasn't a big thing. It was, you know, it wasn't whether we should be doing it or should not be doing it. It was, what are they paying us to do it? Where today, people will actually stop for, 10 seconds and think, should we really be doing it?
Yeah.
I think it's
no,
important.
man. I saw a keyboard that was a cloud keyboard. Like it connects to your machine over the cloud. Like I felt like that should never have been done.
Oh God.
Wait, what?
I don't know.
How does that work?
It was posted by Internet of Shit a while ago. So I mean, yeah. Let's continue with what we're talking about.
It's like a nodes back when they still use mainframes. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay. I'm glad you're here to ask questions too, Pike. So yeah. What were you gonna say? Sorry.
No, go ahead. You.
No, I was just gonna start going into some more of the stuff that that she does here. So I wanted to know more. We talk about this a lot. This is like one of our I feel like our sleeper hits for topic is open source stuff and supply chain stuff. And so I kind of wanted to get your take on the state of that right now, because this has like been, I don't know if this is probably the best tangent to go into. I don't know if anybody has any other suggestions, but this is what I was interested in hearing about the most.
She did answer quite eloquently by going, "Oh."
Yeah.
You have to understand that it's my day job.
Oh, okay. Yes. Let's see.
I literally get paid to argue with product teams about the open source that they're trying to use.
What do you
So
find?
you would see some of the best fails of all time that are just not even like we laugh at them, and it's just something you have to actually follow up on.
Yes, as a matter of fact, if you go to my GitHub and it's my GitHub and it's Sec Princess, you can go find it very easily and look at my Choosing Better Open Source. I have all of the information that I use there. As a matter of fact, I'm giving a talk up in Seattle next November 9th, I think, for choosing better open source packages. So you can go look and see what my presentation actually is. And these are all real things that people tried to put into projects at Intel.
Wow. No, that's awesome. That's something that's the kind of resource that I feel like we need. We always say like, oh, well, don't use that library if it keeps getting owned, or don't use those, plugins, but we don't really give alternatives all the time.
It's not even that bad. A lot of people don't even read the README of the GitHub that they go try to pull in.
Yeah, that's
when you open up a a Git repository and you want to pull down the source code and you look at it and it says this is a fork of a fork of a fork. I mean, doesn't that kind of throw up some red flags for you?
You're doing
Yeah.
God's.
Well, I mean,
Is it cost effective to implement?
well, no, what it was is it was literally a fork of somebody else's, and it said right at the top, I forked this from. I mean, in the guy's reading, the developer was being honest, and I can't hold him at fault. I hold the person who tried to pull it into their product at fault, because it said, this is a fork, and you go look at the fork that he pulled it from, and that one said, this is a fork from source code that I pulled from a book.
Yeah.
And you don't even know what the copyright of the book was. So what's the provenance of the source code?
Yeah.
It's so interesting too, because when at a certain point there is like this need for accountability, and people need to be accountable for the things that they do. If it's reckless, right? And so finding that balance is kind of interesting. You have any insight on that?
I could kind of talk a little bit. I'm part of a small team that implemented in OTC what we called our whitelisting strategy, which is basically anybody who uses open source in a project has to submit their open source whitelisting process.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and it's actually, when we first started, pretty manual, not so much anymore, but we actually go through, we'll vet the open source for them. And I cannot believe the number of people go out and just say, Google, I need to know how to do this. And they pull that first hit off of Google right in.
Wow. For any function. Huh?
Well, yeah, for whatever they want to do. And so we either whitelist it or blacklist it.
Have you
Go ahead.
actually seen it? Have you actually seen it introduce security issues directly just because of that kind of behavior?
I was telling you the other day, yesterday when I was talking to him, that one of the best ones that we ever saw, and we have what we call a derp doc, and if you make it into our derp doc, you have done an excellent job, because it is a running document of the most unbelievable things that we have seen.
It's a great name.
Well, one of them was somebody wanted to put in an SQL accelerator. Well, when somebody says SQL accelerator to a security person, the red flags just go off big time. Because you know that when you have an accelerator, what did they get rid of out of their SQL parsing that might have been good?
Or like, are they caching it somewhere that's, insecure and all those kind of good shit? Like, oh, I just cache it somewhere. Like, don't worry if it's readable.
Get rid of all the security functions. Those slow things down.
Yeah, they do. They slow things down, and don't worry about parsing too much either. Because when we actually looked at the source code and we went, followed a couple of the functions all the way down, one of the best functions that I saw in there was if Postgres, single quotes, if not Postgres, double quotes. So basically SQL injection in a can.
That's awesome. Oh my God.
Sorry, I dropped the microphone. I was crying.
But yeah,
but it's like if equals have go. It's
yes.
like why?
It's like drop table quote.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So I mean, how since you've been in software for a while, what are some of the things like that you've seen change over time as far as, I guess, best practices developing? And what are some of the most important things, I guess, and what are some of the things that people still screw up really bad on?
Well, and I really wish you'd quit saying you've been doing this for so long.
Sorry, I really just saying that. I'm saying I'm very
You're so fucking old. What kind of wise advice can you give us?
It's just, for me, I've not been professional in this field for very long, right? And so when I see somebody who has a lot of experience to be able to pass on that wisdom to me so I don't screw up,
Never make a woman feel old. Let me tell you that.
I mean, next you're gonna make jokes about how she was there when Jesus met at sea. What the fuck?
So, anyway, yeah. What's funny is, and we were talking about this earlier, is that everything old becomes new again.
Yeah.
I mean,
like
if
that
you
cloud keyboard.
Yeah, the RTOS one for IoTS that has been around forever. I mean, these are things that we saw 20 years ago, and now they're back again. It's so. I mean, yes, we keep making the same mistakes over and over again.
We think
So.
We think will eventually help us fix it.
I'm sorry. Did I say that?
You're laughing because it's actually funny, though. Like, be honest, it's fucking funny.
I'm laughing because I'm wondering if I said that with my outside voice. One of the things that people have to start doing is really vetting the source software, the open source that they're putting into their projects, because I mean, people go out and it's always the same things that we see that cause the problems. Parsers, right? So any kind of parser, right? And people go out and say, well, I need a fast parser, and they go out and just pull one, right? They don't even bother to think about it. There are people who've been doing parsers for 20 years, and let's just say that, Apache and places like that, and they still can't get it right. So what makes you think that somebody who did one last week is going to get it right?
It's a good way of looking at it. I like that.
Right. So I try to get people to go pick parsers that have been used for a long time. Right. And ones that are, well looked at. People are using them on a regular basis. Jackson, some of the other ones. I mean, XML is one of the things that keeps migrating and keeps moving forward in time. And every single parser that I know always ends up with a CVE at some point in time. So if you're going out and trying to find a new one that is faster and more portable, and yeah, Hook, you're right. Parsers without unit tests, and any one of them that says that they meet the standards, you better take a really good look at it, because very few of them that I've seen ever meet the standards.
Nice.
For XML, you're supposed to just leave it at eTree and go.
I don't get it. I don't get that joke.
Okay, so the joke there is that you can use eTree to parse, and as long as you are very careful about using the parser, you'll be okay. But it's like encryption; you got 1,000 ways to shoot yourself in the foot.
It's the key word there was being careful, which nobody ever.
Yeah, being careful is a suggestion that always gets overlooked.
Yeah, but I mean, there's tons of them that say like, oh, we're standards compliant. Oh, we're tested. Oh, like we have all this fuzzing that's applied, and everything is going to be great when you use it, and then you actually go to use it, and you didn't read the manual.
Right.
Show me a developer 2 days before delivery at 3:00 in the morning. It's being careful.
Yeah, right. Deadlines even. So it sounds like you've been through it for so long. You are a fan, I would guess, of layered security approach.
Oh, absolutely. Security everywhere you can put it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think one of the more interesting things that we've seen evolution-wise has been two-factor. And adoption rates of two-factor going up. I think that's kind of helping.
Well, it depends on if you're using that as a text message or not.
Yeah, I would even argue.
Get SIM swapped by a 10-year-old.
Yeah, exactly.
You can hijack it, but even just in bulk, the idea of it being a second factor over SMS still.
YubiKey or go home.
Yeah.
Yes, YubiKey or go home. Exactly.
They got the USB-C YubiKeys too now. They're really tiny.
They're really tiny.
Yeah, very.
I lose mine in my pocket all the time.
I really want one of the NFC ones. so I can use it for my phone.
That sounds dangerous, but fun.
Well,
I
then
mean,
you could,
I think it's.
you could have it embedded. You could have it embedded between your thumb and your first finger.
Oh my goodness.
I've
Well,
actually,
this
yeah, I saw the jewelry that was like RFID jewelry and shit that people are using for tap pay. That shit's so stupid.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing about like that stuff, the YubiKeys and that is though that the protocols like HTTP and TOTP or whatever, in a lot of places, but I've seen that companies like Authy, for example, have their own way of implementing stuff as well. So they'll happily play with TOTPs and stuff like that. But then you'll have a developer who'll be like, oh, Authy have this library and they have this callback and you need to open this port and like whatever. It's like, you definitely don't. It's like a time shared secret. Like this is how the protocol works. So I think like, you know, just developers skipping out on the baseline of how that
keys
works.
and your data.
But been developers have been doing that forever. Right.
Mhm.
Every single time that you develop something is supposedly a nice and improved security technique. It's always your developers on the back end that figure out how to game the system and ruin it for everybody else.
Yeah. I mean, like, you know, you want your YubiKey to work. Like, you can just use TOTP. It's okay. Like, securely store your secrets yourself, not in the third party, and everything will still be fine. You don't need to transmit shit, you know?
I agree. It's just, yeah, it's rare to see it done right in the real world.
Yeah. That's always the place where it gets messed up, is in the implementation.
What do you where do you get your motivation to keep doing this every day?
Because it's hilarious.
Okay, right.
It's so much fun sometimes, you know, when I get brought some of this stuff and I start researching and looking through what they're asking me to do, and I'm just going, oh my god. Really?
There's no better satisfaction than owning somebody that claims they do security.
I think you also just literally said you wake up in the morning for the lulz.
I do. I mean, this is what I've been doing for a living now for the last 7 years, I think, is nothing but security stuff. And I've been dealing mostly with open source security and most of it with software supply chain. And like I said, some of the things I've seen are just astounding. You know, people want to bring in code that they just directly copied right out of Stack Overflow.
Oh yeah, that's
I mean, I always like to point out that like Stack Overflow is how you like actually introduce actual Stack Overflows.
Yeah. Well, I always tell them Stack Overflow is fine. They do answer questions most of the time pretty good. Don't ever copy anything from there. Use it as a learning experience and go write your own code.
Yeah.
I think I've mentioned I got banned from like the Node.js Freenode channel because people like I was helping people by introducing like minor bugs into their like exploitable bugs into their code, and after a while the admins like picked up like
Wait,
we're like,
what?
hey,
But you're
People
starting to see more and more of our software development model move towards where we won't let you do anything with even low level or mid level vulnerabilities in your code. It used to be that you only had to fix high and severe.
Yeah.
But we have found, you know, in the past that people are starting to do things like they do with iOS, which is chain a whole bunch of low level, you know, vulnerabilities together to create one that gives you a root exploit of some sort.
Well, that was similar to what My Little Pony up there was saying earlier, with getting XSS that would be known executed by an administrator. Like I've used a similar thing like on pen tests and whatever, where that XSS becomes a CSRF and it's actually now dangerous. Like previously, it's an unauthenticated blind XSS. Nobody gives a shit, and it's scored like the lowest of lows. And it's actually dangerous, you know. And I think a lot of people have just.
The guy I was doing it with, he turned around and said that there's a payload that you can use for WordPress with XSS to basically get them to insta shell their own WordPress install.
Yeah,
Well-
and I mean that's just the case where, like, the low of lows would be generally ignored in a report, and people don't really care. But you're right,
Yeah.
like
That was the
because
first
it's
time I ever looked at WordPress. 10 minutes into grep, it was like admin XSS, easy.
About 3 weeks ago, I was my presentation for choosing source for the Women Who Code Portland for their open source study night. And as I went through the bit about how NPM, with all of its ungodly dependencies and the way that NPM works, and if you don't, you really need to be really careful. And if you're not using NPM audit, you had better start using NPM audit. Well, somebody who was there ran NPM audit on their company's web, whatever it was, and found out they had 9 vulnerabilities, 6 of which were critical, and had them fixed and pushed back in before I was finished with my presentation. They came and thanked me for it.
Yeah.
I really like that GitHub does that now. If you're using a dependency that's potentially vulnerable, they alert you now that you're using a vulnerable thing.
Yes. So NPM audit's like pretty interesting. I don't want to divulge too much about this scenario, but there was, let's just say, more than 100 vulnerabilities listed through NPM audit in a pretty non-important repository. But the code base was written, like, the code base was written by a same group of people, and there was a time frame on the project. And so I was like, okay, I understand you guys don't want to go ahead and fix the 100 plus vulnerabilities in this irrelevant repository, but let's just use it as a way to gauge that with NPM audit, it's telling you have all this terrible nested dependencies. Imagine what's in there if you actually look. Like, you have to not just fix those 100, because it's you don't want to spend time fixing 100 in something that doesn't matter, but you've got the same developers writing code elsewhere that you now think, well, maybe those developers introduced other bugs that we haven't been able to measure in this way.
Well, when I was talking to you yesterday, I was telling that when they broke the internet, when left pad was removed by the developer who was having an argument and took everybody down on the East Coast, the one thing that Lori Voss said is that basically this can still happen, right? But I think that the way that this is going to go, and I'm sure somebody's working on it very well, is they're just going to start installing malware into very low level, very low dependency little pieces of code down there in NPM where nobody's really watching or paying much attention to it. And then you're going to end up having all of these places pull it into their code.
Yeah, that's one of the other interesting things about that vector is that NPM being based on like GitHub stars. Like, this is something I've brought up before. Like, why not just get a whole bunch of bots to star the shit out of your shitty library?
Exactly.
And all of a sudden, yeah, now the NPM ecosystem is skewed in your favor for your known backdoor code. Like,
excuse me, sir, did you just introduce GitHub click farming?
Yes.
I mean, I talked about this as a YouTube video. I talked about it on stage from fucking, I don't know, some security event. But yeah, that's exactly that's it.
You don't think it doesn't exist already?
No, that's why I just defined it.
Yeah. That's it, like the NPM ecosystem. But yeah, and that was the thing. Again, Stack Overflow, same thing. Like, people, you ask a question. If you ask a question that's like, how do I left pad? People are going to be like, well, you just use the left pad NPM fucking thing, you idiot.
Exactly. And that's what they do.
Yeah, whereas like if you wanted to write a secure, like managing a secure code base, I guess, like from a supply chain perspective, I guess the internal mirrors are like a huge thing that a lot of people don't do. Like, if you limit your dependencies, I guess, to stuff that is a manageable amount, and then mirror it internally, you know you're not going to accidentally pull in a fucked up left pad until it gets audited, right?
Right. Well, I mean, one of the things that was really smart was obviously when NPM bought NSP, and that's what became NPM Audit. But also you have companies out there like NodeSource. Don't charge a whole lot, but for each project, they will look at and be your provenance for any NPM code that you're bringing in, so that you can guarantee it.
Although there's still Unicode splitting in 8.12. That's what I was talking about at the start of the show. Like there's in the path parameter of the HTTP client library in Node.js, in the one like 8.12, the latest LTS released by NodeSource, like you can still inject multi-byte characters for HTTP splitting. Lol.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that if you at least told them.
Oh, it's known. It's getting fixed. It's fixed in 10.11 maybe, I think.
Right,
they
but
introduced-
it's also one of those things that if a company that is using NodeSource get that have the information that this particular module is bad, you can take the time to go fix that yourself.
Yeah, so like actually I tried to do that. So
Really?
the difference between I spent 5 days working on backporting the HTTP library from 10 to 8, and it's not too much internal stuff changed basically to make it worthwhile. So that result was stop using the LTS and upgrade to non-LTS. I've seen that there is a thing on their HackerOne for Node.
Yeah.
Somebody disclosed a bug like within about the same time frame as the Git pushes started happening that fixed that bug. So that's like the 2 and 2 I put together. But I'm guessing.
Well, that's also my second biggest bitch about NPM is the fact that complete architectures can change overnight.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was very I mean, I don't know how many people are affected by that particular bug, but I felt like I wish it had been a little bit more transparent. Like, and I understand how like embargoes work on open source projects as well, but there's certain times where I think a little bit more urgency needs to be handled, and I guess because some of my grabs with Node. So
yeah, embargoes are a whole thing, right? Like,
I don't tell me about that. I do actually work. I work from time to time on PCerts at Intel for stuff which are embargoed and things of that nature. And basically, I can't talk about stuff like that for months.
yeah, but I mean, and so I don't expect you to blow up your spot or anything here if it goes into that territory. But my personal view on embargoes is it's delaying just getting the word out to people that can usually use it in a better way than damage that it would cause.
Well, but that a lot of that is kind of if you. I really can. I used to think a lot the same way too, but being on seeing side, I kind of understand it kind of different way, I guess. And that is, it takes time to fix things.
Absolutely.
And how to fix them correctly. I mean, we as developers tend to throw things out there and say, okay, it's fixed. And QA gets it and they say, oh, no, it's not.
I think it's probably the biggest place to make a delineation is when it's an embargo to almost build interest in it versus an embargo that actually needs to be there to protect the integrity of like our country, things like that. Like I get it. I get why embargoes exist, but some of them I do not. Some of them I think are ridiculous.
Oh, and I might tend to agree with you. So,
yeah. I mean, like, the other thing as well is like, let's talk about Sec Princess. I don't want to, just put you in a weird position, but I know there's some ways to, if you contribute to certain projects, you will, you get some patches through, you will get onto the notification list for these things. Yep. So I guess you know, if you wanted that embargoed information beforehand, maybe you can help Intel and have that information handy for you to defend and not use for evil, like, you know.
Well, that's just it.
Or use it for evil. I mean, that's kind of one of my gripes about embargoes. And sorry to hijack your answer, but yeah, that's an insider threat issue then, and that is a real thing that should be factored into why are we actually using an embargo again?
It's for many reasons, but usually to protect the company that has the that originally has the.
Yeah.
Not that I agree with it, but I understand it.
Yep. Definitely.
So I wanted to ask you. I've been looking at your GitHub. I didn't see this before, but you have a lot of awesome like open source auditing tools. I see stuff for Docker and things like that. And I'm just thinking, like, how could we, or how would you suggest empowering newer devs to actually look for this kind of stuff and make changes rather than like listen to what people have said is easier to do or what they've been taught to do, like, you know, curling some whatever setup file into sudo bash, like, you know, piping it into bash as sudo, like that kind of stuff is like, it's just the norm for a lot of people, especially people who are self-taught or people who haven't gone through the ringer of this, the actual damages this stuff can cause. How can you sort of empower, or what would you say to people who are coming into this field that have those kind of habits, to just actually look for, you know, look at the source code? You know, people are afraid to like look at what's in there. You know, they think it's complicated, but you can certainly audit pretty easily for your basic stuff and just see where things are going. You know, but I want to just get your perspective on that.
But it's actually one of the hardest things to get people. And I mean, we even now, I mean, we have, you know, RCGs come in and they don't know C. And so when they get sat down and try to, you know, work in C, they make some horrible mistakes because they're just, you know, trying to do it based off of the book learning that they've, you know, that they've actually. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, not even book learning. Like I've met programmers that come out of private colleges that are like taught programming and have like, you know, information security degrees, and it's a fucking joke, man. The practices that they're taught are you have to like throw that shit. You have to tell them to literally throw that shit out a window and reteach them the proper way to do things, and it's nasty as fuck. Like you'll see people with degrees that cost them like, you know, $80,000 a year, and it's fucking worthless, man. As far as like practical programming now in this this day and age is it's something that's taught from the vets anymore. It's not something that I don't think will ever be taught to people that are coming up from schools or just learning programming for the first time in a 4-year degree.
Yeah.
The problem is as well, the people that have got the degree that have gone and learned all this fucking bullshit, like learning about the insides of a CPU on a security course. Well, I wouldn't say it's really useless, but not as much. Like they end up getting the jobs that like people with experience and stuff, or that are self-taught a lot more relevant stuff to the area that they're going for, won't get the job.
Well, to kind of give you an example from a long time ago, I found out that PhDs and physicists write probably the worst code I've ever seen in the world. Because I was working at Precision Interconnect and we had to do some multivariate testing where we were working on determining femtoamp voltage leakage in implantable cables, and it took like 12 to 24 hours to determine the type of leakage, and the software that they wrote took 4 or 5 days to run, where the software that I went through and rewrote for them took about 4 hours to run.
That's funny. What
Sorry, this is on that. I want to make a shout out to one of the admins at Nectar who listens, which is a educational that runs. It's a massive compute cloud that you can use for free, and it takes days to run single-threaded processors because the PhD guys can't code.
Shout out.
What's going on?
That salt and harder one.
What's that, Bike?
No, not much.
That was the best word shout out though. Thanks, Danzy.
Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah.
can you repeat that? You kind of went robot for a second.
Well, me?
Pike.
Oh shoot. Yeah, I was just saying rub that salt and harder.
Okay.
Nice. Nailed it.
Where's
Well
her back? I don't.
Oh my god. Yeah, your connection, buddy.
I think I got one word.
I got a.
It happens. You can type it too if you need to. But yeah, no, that's really an interesting perspective. I mean, people they have to learn, I guess, everything. There's so much to learn now. Like when you want to get into anything, I mean, you're doing web or AppSec, like whatever kind of security or even just being a regular coder and trying to code securely. There's just still so many factors now because everything is just built on top of just everything's loaded.
Everybody needs to figure out that security has to be designed architecture. You're never going to get it done right when you try to do it on the back end.
Yeah.
So I got a quick question to something that you just touched on before. You mentioned implantable cable.
You kind of just passively said that.
So would you like? So you're talking about leakage from implantable cable. Were you trying to stop the leakage or to increase the leakage of said cable?
To measure the leakage, because for for a medically implantable cable, it has to have less than so much leakage, and the leakage has to be in the femto to attoamp range.
You mean an actual implant?
Yes.
Yes. Not a malicious implant.
So is this leakage referred to as cancer?
No.
I thought you were talking about a man's house.
This leakage is referred to as when you have a pacemaker that has cables that run over to your heart. You don't want those things leaking so bad that your heart's going wacko because the extra current is being leaked out.
That's the bad EMF right there.
Fascinating. That's cool.
It's when you become a wireless charger.
Yes. Just set your phone on your chest and charge.
I literally have to get back to base.
Or you'll die.
So have you been doing a lot with medical lately? Or
I haven't. No, that medical was when I worked for Precision and Connect and did all of my. I mean, to give you an idea how long ago I did medical was, I actually did and got to see first 3D ultrasound done by ATL at our offices with 2 Sun workstations doing despeckling for the real-time ultrasound.
That's very cool.
Some microsystem shit.
Yeah, I remember those. I think.
Oh, so do I. I also worked with lasers when I worked there. So I actually have a paper that I did all of the research for back in the 90s for SPIE on UV laser.
What's the one area that really gets you going, like that you really like?
Everything that I've ever done.
Really, just across the board?
I just when I get bored with doing something, I try to go different, and that's what everybody should do. Don't sit there and get mad because you're having to do the same thing again. Go find something that drives your passion and go try to do it.
Yeah, that's good advice.
That's what I'm trying to do because I'm getting sick of like trying to do bug bounties and stuff and getting beaten by a bunch of Indians running at kinetics.
Welcome, bro. Welcome to the world of Indians.
Well, it's one of those things where I hated doing. I had been doing embedded systems, for 20 years, and I got so tired of it that I moved up to the outer layer and found out that porting a kernel 25 times a year wasn't very much fun either.
It sounds incredibly fun. No, I'm just kidding. That sounds horrible. I agree.
It was horrible.
But I mean, keeping that, even if it was boring during the day. Not everybody has the luxury of being able to have a fun job. I consider myself, and I think a lot of people on here are lucky enough to have fun jobs. But I think keeping yourself occupied at home with projects and doing exploration and stuff like that.
See, that's where I mess up because I lack motivation when it comes to just most stuff now. Like applying for a job, just completely pointless because they're just instantly, do you have a criminal background? Yes. No job. Bye.
There's a thing about resume scanners that came out recently where they were giving preference to people whose name was Jared that played lacrosse in high school.
Yeah. That was mined from like LinkedIn.
Well, you have to understand that I have no degree.
Yeah, I don't have a high school diploma either. I think a lot.
Well, I have a GED at least, but I don't have a.
Same here. That's still.
And
Yeah, you're part of the cool club then.
Yeah, I don't have a college degree. It's fine.
Yeah,
I'll make it somehow.
I was making $80,000 a year working on cars while my friends were racking up $100,000 a year in college education.
There you go. Awesome.
So another thing that you do, so you mentioned the Women in Code when you were talking about your open source security stuff. Do you want to tell us a little about your involvement with that?
Well, I started about a year ago. Being I try not to let my identity, define who I am, but being the fact that I'm a trans, I wanted to be involved with other women. Then I wanted to be able to bring more people, because we have a huge problem. We can't get enough of, and we can't get enough of interest. And so I decided I was going to get involved in the women's groups. And so I looked around for 5 months and finally picked Code and asked them if I could volunteer for them. And they, after a while, they said sure. And so they let me in, and I was volunteer work. I didn't want to run any of them. It's not really sure how well that would work out. And so I just kind of hung back and just was there as a volunteer. And within about 6 months, they put me on their leadership staff. And I am now out there very much in front because I advocate a lot for women at Intel. I advocate for women outside of Intel. I'm not only on the Code Portland, but I'm also the direct leadership team for the Diana Initiative, which is a conference that goes on during DEF CON that promotes women in InfoSec. And I do as much as I can to, lift women and bring more women into tech.
It's great. It's appreciated. And the Diana Initiative, especially, it seemed like there was a marked uptick in participation and size.
Yes, to give you an idea, I'm working on finances for next year's conference, and we're just now starting all of that cycle. And I just got all of the data put together, and we had 200 attendees this year with 49 speakers, and turned away over 700 additional people because we did not have room.
Wow. Well, sounds like a great opportunity for next year.
The authors would get.
Oh, I couldn't actually hear you. I don't know if everybody else could.
If you buy the Rust programming language book from No Starch Press, Black Girl's Code gets the author's money.
No, that's
Very cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Are there any ways that we could support? Because I'd been to DEF CON for the first time this year and heard about the Diana Initiative through that and stuff, and I thought it was awesome. Then Pirate Moon was also telling me about it as well. But is there any way that anybody here, if they're listening, could get involved with that or Women Who Code?
Yeah, DianaInitiative.org. Women Who Code. I think it's .com. I'm not really sure. I
All right, cool. We'll add it to the show notes though.
I think it's either .com or .org. I'm not sure which. I'm checking
Should we
here
check
for you.
first or just do a fish attack?
Yeah, just do a fish attack.
.co. Okay.
But even just showing up to those events is helpful.
It is womenwhocode.com, and that's their main one. And there's a whole bunch of, I mean, it's a worldwide 501c3, and there are many branches in cities around the world. I mean, even Berlin, everywhere. I just happen to be involved with it.
That's awesome. So yeah, I don't know if you have anything else to you wanted to touch on or share. We're more than happy to.
Well, as I was telling you, I do. One of the things that I see is you need to get out things with other people and get away from the coding, not be trying to do it 20 a day, which is why I do the stuff with code and initiative. And I'm also a Trevor Chat crisis counselor, LGBT youth.
Oh, wow, cool.
So what do you do with that specifically? Or what is Trevor Chat?
Trevor Chat is Trevor Project is an LGBTQ youth suicide hotline. And they also have chat and IRC. It's like IRC anyway. So you can text or chat. And you can, I talk with kids that are as young as 9 and as old as 20 that are in crisis. And it's actually been, pretty bad because, I mean, I didn't have a good childhood, growing up as a trans kid in the 60s and 70s. So when I get to hear these kids and hear that some of them actually have childhoods worse than mine, it's, very cathartic for me.
Well, your effort there is definitely appreciated, though. Like, thanks for doing that.
Absolutely.
Is there rudely interrupted everyone? How am I coming in by?
What?
Nah, shit. I should just stop talking.
Yeah, you're cutting off, buddy, a little bit.
You could type it, or do you want to? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you can go, sign up to be a volunteer, and they want, when you go in and you learn to become a volunteer for them, you go through 8 weeks of classes on weekends, and I mean, you really have to want to put in for this and want to do this, because after your 8 weekends of classes, then they expect to get 108 hours out of you for the next year.
Yeah.
I think the standard kind of disclaimer would be make sure that you have the emotional bandwidth to take that on.
Yes.
Because, it's not an easy thing to do. It's a very tough thing to do. So I appreciate it, though.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a huge thing to just be able to do as a side thing, on top of doing what you do for your day job, as well as taking the time to speaking with us. I was amazed when you told me all this stuff.
I'm also on the board of directors for our local fire department, where I used to be a volunteer firefighter and EMT, and that was one thing I actually couldn't keep up the amount of training necessary, because Oregon requires you to have about 500 hours a year training over and above whatever training you have first. And so I couldn't keep up with it. So I quit being a firefighter EMT and joined the directors. Now I just tell them how to spend the money. So I'm the only, I live in a small, where has anybody ever seen the logging show on whatever it was? It was, what was it called?
Tree logging?
Yeah, it was tree logging. I can't remember what the name of the show was.
Reality shows about tree logging. Fun.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I happen to live in the town where I used to work on one of the loggers that was on that show.
Oh, cool.
So I'm the only openly serving government elected trans person in our little logging town.
Yeah, there you go. That's awesome.
Shout to all the lumberjacks out there. They love that wood.
Oh yeah.
Lumber Jills.
Shit.
Am I the only one that got the wood joke?
That's great. Wow. Yeah, it's I don't know how you do it. Schedule, but that's amazing.
They call me the busiest woman in tech.
It sounds like it. And you got just because we're I think wrapping up a little bit. But you're doing November 9th in Seattle. What are you doing?
Seagull Conference. It's a free conference. SEAGL.org.
Okay.
And you can also go find me on LinkedIn as Mickey Demeter. You can also go find my WordPress account. I'm at the Dog Crate on Twitter. Right, Oregon Vixen. Well, right now it's Hex and Beast Vixen because it's Halloween.
Yeah, I just
But-
followed you on that.
Yeah. But it's been fun doing this. I was really glad that you asked me to do this because as I told you, I'm kind of a horror way.
No, it's been great having you on, and I think anybody that's in the Seattle area should go check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely be posting all the links that we've discussed, including your conference proposal and your GitHub and all the different awesome resources you just shared with us for people in our show notes, which I'll post again. I closed the tab.
Oh, it's over. The show's
Yep.
over. Close the tab.
Yeah, I have Control-Shift-D. But yeah, so everybody here, I'm going to put all these things in here later on today, and we'll definitely have all this stuff available for people. So yeah, thanks so much for coming on. And this has been awesome. Just everything that you've shared with us, and a lot of interesting things to bring to work tomorrow. Think about.
Thank you very much for having me. It was really fun.
Of course. So yeah, thanks for everybody here. If anybody has any questions in the Twitch chat or here, you want to ask any last words, go for it now.
Yeah, good
Speak now.
question. So like, what's been the most significant culture change in our industry that you've seen over time? And do you think it's gotten better in general or worse?
When you talk about culture, do you mean development-wise or just mean culture?
Like just like tech or hacker culture in general.
Well, hacker culture has gotten better in the last 5 to 6 years because trust me that before that, hacker culture was too dude bro. I mean, unless you were a very strong, with very, strong, where you could put up with the guys, you weren't accepted into the to the security aspect of it. There were very few women in it. We have lots more women in it now, and it's become a lot better just in the last 5 to 6 years.
Yeah, I remember hearing a few women talking about like they had their own handles just pretending to be dude bros in regular groups back in the day. But it was always interesting because I never heard too much about it. I just heard about the existence.
Well, if you want to, you have to remember, I worked with Sage Sharp. Originally was Sarah Sharp. So if you go Google Sarah Sharp and Torvalds, you'll see what that was like a while ago.
I just think like if you recall back in the hacking scene before, when everybody was just you slash names in an IRC channel, if it didn't it didn't actually specify, there was no gender, so like people didn't think about it as much. And I think like if you look at the Hacker Manifesto, it says existing without creed or whatever, all the things it lists, and it doesn't actually list gender in there. And I think that's one of the like missed opportunities. Like had it have said gender in there, it could have shut down so many like arguments that came in the future. Like if hackers can exist, you don't need to be a guy or a girl or whatever to be a hacker. It's all of us. And it's something that we want to exist without prejudices, yet it didn't. Yeah,
but
it wasn't visible at the time.
To tell you how really old I am is my first job was programming an IBM System 360, 370 in assembler.
Shout outs to Mainframe D 767.
One more
Yeah, that's-
question. Sorry for cutting you off there, but I actually really like reading the older books like Tannenbaum and Ritchie and all those folks. I was just wondering, do you have any diehard old book that you would?
My Kernighan Ritchie. My C book is still on my shelf and will be forever. And same thing with my data algorithms book.
Yeah, I've got a pirated copy of C printed out on my desk.
So those are my two go-to books for everything. I write mostly in C. I dabble in Python because I do lots of hacking and lots of little scripting stuff in Python, but I'm not what I would call a Python programmer.
Did you say you love C?
I love C.
Gotcha.
I absolutely love C. And I'm a C programmer that programs C++ like C. Does that make sense? So I actually took C++ off of my resume because I don't really write C++. I write C++ in C. Which is what I find most. That's what most do. I mean, the C++ programmers I know are awesome. I am not one of them. Yes, that is one of those books.
Here.
I'm trying to find you a picture real quick.
But I still love my favorite question when people come in and have that they do C and C++ because everybody does it on their.
What do you prefer, C++ or C?
C. I can do more. I can do more with C because I'm an embedded programmer, so I did stuff at the lowest level. But one of the things that I love when I see a resume that says C/C++ as one of their languages is to ask them what a virtual interface is, and 9 out of 10 times they can't answer me unless they're a real C++ program.
Ooh, all right. I got one. What's the answer?
What is a virtual interface? It's not it's what you use to get to a concrete class.
Okay.
There's no implementation.
Hermit literally was dealing with that yesterday.
But it's one of those good questions, that it lets you know if they really do. And I like that bookshelf view.
Hell yeah.
And yes, that's the exact same book I have on my shelf. That's
I got that on my desk now.
Yeah, that's my Bible. But I also have my my Black Hat Python book.
You got the wizard book?
Yes. And I also have my the Holy Bible of POC or GTFO, both versions.
Of course. Yeah, I was about to ask you too. Those are like the literally just reading it of a trade. Just I don't know, nothing better than that.
Yep, that's the Black Hat Python book I have. So you see, everybody I know has this. Right? I mean, on my desk is my POC or GTFO that looks like a Bible, and everybody walks by and looks at that like, wow, and then they pick it up and they look at it and they just start chuckling as they're reading through it. Rust. I actually have a few friends that are really hung up, like Josh Triplett at Intel. I mean, he does a lot of stuff out in the public, and Rust is actually pretty cool. I mean, I like it.
I think it's gonna be the new thing for 2019. Rust.
It's been working for the last couple of years. I'm hoping that more people pick it up because it's actually pretty smart that it does.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just got the book.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely looking at that. So actually, one of the last things I meant to ask you is, where do you see software development going in the future?
I don't. Everybody keeps saying it's going to be automated out. I don't see how that's possible.
Yeah.
I think we're just going to keep fighting this battle. Like I said, everything old becomes new again. we will end up with languages that have new ways to be exploited that we just can't tell until we actually get there. They keep working harder and harder at one of the things that I've seen, which has been kind of interesting, is that as programs get more, becomes more, become stronger, and OSs become bulletproof, that all of these hacks keep moving down closer and closer and closer into the hardware, and we're now starting to deal with USB rootkits and stuff like that to where I think that it just takes people time to look at, and there's always going to be somebody somewhere has nothing better to do than to figure out a way to break something.
Yeah, MG.
Just MG. That's great. Great insight here. Yeah. I'm just like trying to find more books to show you, but yes.
Yes.
More books. I haven't finished unpacking on my books yet here. I have really too many ones that you probably know. Yeah. So we should probably wrap up though, because it's a little past 11:30 over here on the East Coast. But thank you so much, Tech Princess, for joining us. This has been an amazing chat, and you are more than welcome to hang out in our Discord. And I don't know, we'd love to chat with you more.
It was this has been a lot of fun.
I'm glad. So yeah, I posted the notes. I'll post them again with the updated links and everything. And we'll have a new. I'm gonna actually this week. Gonna finish re-encoding all of the videos to audio because I have been slacking on that since Georgia Weedman came on. So everybody's just been stuck in Twitch mode. But yeah, so you guys will be able to see that soon. Weekendhack.in. If anybody wants to get involved in our 24-hour CTF, we have 5 slots open. If you also want to help me think of something cool for people to do to root a box, you can also ping me as well. I'm DMX in a jean suit on Twitter, or just ThugCrowd. And then the last thing is next week is the aesthetics episode for our Spooktacular. So show us your best hardware, software, desktop environment costumes that you can't live without, and we will be sharing them together. So yeah. Anybody have any last words?
I'm still posting a Windows install.
Shut the fuck up and get a lawyer.
True.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, damn it. All right. So thanks everybody, and we will see you later.
Peace out.
Thanks a lot.